Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. We're doing something completely different and doing an original soundtrack retrospective for the one and only Dynasty Warriors 1. Firstly, we'll dive into the history of the game itself, then look, or rather listen, to some of the soundtrack. Dynasty Warriors dropped in 1997 for the Sony PlayStation, and here's a very happy 10-year-old me with mine. However, unlike the hack and slash installments we know and love the series for, the first game was actually a fighting game akin to the likes of Virtua Fighter, Soul Blade, and of course the Tekken series. And if we're talking about soundtracks, the Tekken 2 original soundtrack is an absolute masterpiece. I might even do a video about this one day. Although Koei was typically known at the time for doing simulation video games such as Liberty and Death, based on the American Revolutionary War, and of course, the Romance of the Three Kingdom games, when this game dropped at the PlayStation Expo in 1996, it genuinely surprised attendees, seeing the company step into somewhat new territory. The game itself is pretty self-explanatory, a good old beat 'em up with the familiar characters we know from the series dueling it out in one-on-one combat. It's impressive to know that character animations were made using motion capture, and for a game from 1997, it looks pretty much as you'd expect. If you get a chance to play the game, I'd give it a bash, although it's probably a bit cumbersome compared to today's fighting games, but hell, at least you don't need to buy additional characters through the store. Yeah, that's right, I'm looking at you Tekken 7, you abomination. So how about the music? The music itself is extremely typical of fighting games of the era. In particular, again trying not to do so, I have to come back to referencing the early Tekken games. It's your typical mishmash of techno, jazz, funk beats that tickle the senses as you mindlessly hammer your way through opponents. However, unlike the amazing rock and metal tracks we get in later games... God, Dynasty Warriors 4 is so good! Unfortunately, there's just not a great deal to say about the game's OST. It's just a pretty generic 90s game soundtrack, although I will give it props for having some pretty good percussion and slapping bass lines, but I figured that if I was going to do these retrospectives on the soundtracks, I'd need to go back to the past to where it all started. But what we are going to do is listen to 3 of the tracks that I believe stood out. Firstly is the opening theme. It's a perfect example of an opening track for a 90s beat-em-up. The bass really stands out in this one, as a backing choir, and it gets you pumped, as an opening track should do. Second is Zhao Yun's theme, a fast-paced rhythmic track with yet again killer bass and some tasty synth work. Get it in your earholes. Finally, there's Lubu's theme. Naturally, no matter what game he's in, he'll end up having the top tier track. It's got a great build up and some great percussion work. And finally, an honourable mention to Dame Way's theme, which was clearly written in the style of an 80s American cop show. is more than Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah. Overall, there's not too much to expect from this game, however its combat was unique and certainly in some small way would have helped in the progression of fighting games as a whole. At the time it was met with positive reception, and the most wonderful thing about it is that it set in place character design models which would then be the base for the characters we know and love, and what I consider to be one of the most fun game series ever made, and essentially a gaming series that is very close to my heart and been a huge part of my YouTube journey. If you enjoyed this content, like, comment and subscribe, let me know what track from Dynasty Warriors 1 you liked, and I'll see you soon for an original soundtrack retrospective for Dynasty Warriors 2. Thanks for watching, and take care.